Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. For a devotee who has actually developed bhava, the pleasure derived from dharma, artha, kama and moksha appears like a drop in the presence of the sea. Text 86. The conclusion of all revealed scriptures is that one should awaken his dormant love of Godhead. You are greatly fortunate to have already done so. Text 87. It is a characteristic of love of Godhead that by nature it induces transcendental symptoms in one's body and makes one more and more greedy to achieve the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Text 88. When one actually develops love of Godhead, he naturally sometimes cries, sometimes laughs, sometimes chants, and sometimes runs here and there, just like a madman. Purport. In this connection, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami says that sometimes persons who have no love of Godhead at all display ecstatic bodily symptoms. Artificially, they sometimes laugh, cry, and dance just like madmen, but this cannot help one progress in Krishna consciousness. Rather, such artificial agitation of the body is to be given up when one naturally develops the necessary bodily symptoms. Actually, blissful life, manifested in genuine spiritual laughing, crying, and dancing, is a symptom of real advancement in Krishna consciousness, which can be achieved by a person who always voluntarily engages in transcendental loving service of the Lord. If one who has not yet developed imitates such symptoms artificially, he creates chaos in the spiritual life of the human society. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Panchatattvaakmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Namami Hari Priye. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are very fortunate to be reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita during the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when he wanted to read Chaitanya Charitamrita. He had to spend years before he could even lay his hands on Chaitanya Charitamrita. It was that difficult because it was so rare. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and by the mercy of Prabhupada's BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, we have such easy access to this glorious scripture. So before we even try to read this or discuss this verse, it will be important for a few seconds to meditate upon what fortune we have to even read this scripture. Bhagavad Gita is a graduate study of Krishna consciousness, which itself is so glorious. It ends in the understanding of Sarva Dharman Parityajya, to abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. And that itself is one of the highest understanding, which 99% of people in society don't even understand, to abandon everything and surrender to Krishna. The word surrender is unheard of. Most of the time, religiosity or religion is meant for majority of the people is as a business, that I come to you, God, I give you something, what will you give me in return? But Gita ends, just says that abandon all varieties of religion, just surrender to me, don't expect anything. Ahetuki apratiyata bhakti, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service. And then we have the Srimad Bhagavatam, which really talks about what exactly is Sarva Dharma Parityajya, which is shown by the Gopis of Vrindavan, the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, where Krishna says, it shows by his example on how devotees exhibit this Sarva Dharma Parityajya. But higher understanding on how the Lord behaves when he becomes a devotee, how he follows this principle of Gita and Bhagavat, is Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's a postgraduate study of Krishna consciousness. So, sitting here, it will be a great audacity on my part to really have the understanding of having any understanding of speaking about this great scripture written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. But yes, by the Prabhupada's mercy, we are getting a wonderful understanding and so easy availability and accessibility to this very, very glorious and rare scripture. So we must really value it. So here we are discussing about the discussion between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prakasananda Saraswati, who was a very, very powerful Mayavadi sannyasi having 60,000 sannyasi disciples. That's the type of power this man had. And they were extremely renounced, extremely knowledgeable. And there's a discussion between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prakashananda Saraswati. Not ordinary discussion, very, very elevated discussion. And in that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is quoting what he had heard from his spiritual master. And this is the verses which are quoted of what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Prakashananda, of what he had heard from his spiritual master. And he's saying that for a devotee who has developed bhava, the pleasure derived from dharma, artha, kama and moksha appears like drop in the presence of the sea. So we understand that Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Syadha Kabunoy Shravan Adi Suddhe Chitte Karore Udoy. There is a beautiful verse which explains that pure love of God is situated in everyone's heart. Is there. Everyone, not just human beings, but every living entity has this love of God in their heart. But is in a dormant situation. Shravan Adi Suddhe Chitte Karare Udoy. By hearing about the glories of Krishna, this dormant love of God is like the brilliant sun. And who more than you all will understand this example? That when the sun is covered by clouds, how gloomy the atmosphere is, isn't it? you experience it every day practically. Not so much in India, because it is just so sunny all the time, most of the time, except in the rainy season. But when the sun, which is so brilliant, is covered by the thick clouds, it is just so gloomy and so cold and so dull. But when the clouds go away, the brilliant sun is seen so wonderfully. Similarly, that pure love of God is there in all our hearts, but is covered by the cloud of ignorance, thick clouds of ignorance. And slowly, by the process of Krishna consciousness, by the process of hearing, these layers of ignorance are removed, and one fine day this effulgent sun in the form of love of God becomes manifested in our hearts. So the purpose of Krishna consciousness is to manifest this love of God. And it's explained that once we get the higher taste of love of God, everything else appears to be insignificant. So it is explained that the pleasure derived from artha, kama, dhamma and moksha, which is the 4 purusharthas, the 4 ways of being religious. They are like drops compared to the ocean of bliss derived by devotional service. Most of the time we are just working after artha, that is to economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. But when we get a higher understanding, we realize that this is a small drop compared to the bliss derived from devotional service. And a devotee is ready to go to any extent of suffering to derive that bliss. We have this very, very famous story of Krishna having a headache. Krishna also has a headache. Maybe because of his devotees being so useless. Oh my God. Many times, when does people have headache? When they are traumatized by other people. So Krishna must be so traumatized that he has so many of his people who are just Krishna bahir mukha bhogavancha kare nikatiya mayastane jhapatiya dhare. That when somebody becomes bahir mukh to Krishna, when he puts his face away from Krishna bahir mukha bhogavancha kare. He desires sense gratification. Bhogavancha. Vancha means desires. Bhoga means sense gratification. Nikatiya mayastana jhapatiya dhar. And then Maya comes and captures that person. I say, yes, come. You want sense gratification? Here you are. And offers all sorts of sense gratification. And in that he completely forgets that he was a devotee of Lord. And this causes Krishna's headache. So my God, this guy is gone. So when he had a headache, he said they were trying all possible means to relieve Krishna of his headache. And Krishna said that, well, you really want to relieve me of my headache? I need the dust from the lotus feet of a devotee of the Lord, of mine. I said, fine. So they went to all devotees. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, all the great devotees of the Lord. I said, what? Krishna has headache? We are very sad to hear that. How can we help? Give your dust. I said, no way. We cannot help you with our dust, because if we give dust, we will go to hell eternally. How can we dream of giving dust of our feet to Krishna? And finally they went to the gopis. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained, Aradya Bhagavan Vrajishtanaya Tadhama Brindavanam Ramya Kachitupasana Brajavadu Vargena Va Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumarto Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatra Dharana Paraha Shri Radha Gokulanand ki, Shri Radha Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki. So they explain in this beautiful verse, Aradya Bhagavana Brajeshtanaya, that the Lord that we worship is Vrajeshtanaya, is the son of Nanda Maharaj. Not Krishna of Mathura, not Krishna of Dwarka, but Krishna who is the son of Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan. Tad Dhama Vrindavan, the most glorious holy place is Shri Vrindavan Dham, the place where Krishna performed his pastimes. Ramya Kachitupasana Brajavadu, and the most glorious devotees. There are so many, hundreds and hundreds of devotees of the Lord. But the most glorious of all of them is Brajavadus, the gopis of Vrindavan. Why are they glorious? Because of this particular story. And we'll understand why. And then finally they went to the gopis and they said, Krishna has an headache. And the gopis said, oh really, Krishna, please tell us how. We are so sad to hear this. We want to help Krishna in any way we can. I said, give your dust. And I explained, by our acharyas, that they started digging all the dust and they started filling, practically truckloads of it. Take all the dust you want. And I said, you know what will happen if you give dust to Krishna? It is not that they were ignorant. It is not that they were doing things out of ignorance. There's no what will happen. It is not that they asked what will happen. They knew fully well. They said that we know very well when we give dust what will happen. What will happen? They said we will go to hell for rest of our life. I said, but you are not worried about that? I said, if we can relieve Krishna of a headache even for a second, we are ready to go to hell for rest of our life. That is love. That is param drishtavani vartante. That is the higher taste that these devotees have received. They are ready to go through any suffering. They are ready to give up any pleasures to please Krishna. Similarly, we have this beautiful story to substantiate this first verse, the devotee actually develops bhav. The pleasure derived from artha, karma, dhamma and moksha appears like a drop in the presence of the sea. Very, very great devotee of the Lord. The Lord, as Nimai, would every day interact with him. Very ordinary person, having a very ordinary occupation. Kolovecha Sridhar. He was a banana seller. And bananas grow all over Bengal very profusely. Banana trees. So if you are selling something which grows profusely all over, it's not a great business. Isn't it? Many of you are businessmen here. And if you want to do business, if you have something rare, if those who are of Indian origin, you want something from India, which is not available here, and you sell that, you make big money, because it is rare. It's only available there, and if somebody gets it here, it's big money. But Kolovecha Sridhar was such a businessman. He was selling banana articles, banana leaves, banana flowers, banana trunk, because banana is such a wonderful tree. Everything can be used. In Vedic script, the plates are made of banana leaves. Krishna has provided everything. Krishna will not use steel plates or plastic plates or thermocol plates when you go to the forest. Krishna would eat on leaves, various type of leaves, and even now we have these beautiful leaves in Kamyavan, where Krishna just made the whole tree into cups. Even the trees, that leaves now also grow in form of cups. And Krishna used that and filled his dal and everything, and he would use that. He would not carry, when we go for picnic, we have our plastic plates and we eat there. But Krishna would not do that. He would just use what was available on the... Krishna was very much ecology conscious. He would not, dirty the ecology. So like that, Kolovecha Sridhar was selling bananas which was profusely available. And he was such a strange type of businessman, that his mentality was, as explained by Krishna Kaviraj Goswami, that I should charge just enough that I make little profit. Just enough so that I can make little profit. This is not a way businessman thinks. A businessman thinks that how much I can charge, I can get maximum profit. But Kolovecha was saying that just enough so that I can just make small profit, and that too 50% of the profit he would use to worship Ganges. Because that was her Aradhya Bhagavan, Mother Ganga. He would worship Mother Ganga every day. So Nimai would come every day to the stall of Kolovecha Sridhar. And he would argue. And he said, what is the cost of this particular item? And he said, so and so annas. I said, too much. You are charging double the price. And he would argue and argue and argue for 2 to 2.5 hours every day. And would finally take away everything without paying a single, penny or anna to him. I said, you are charging too much. He just would take away. And Sridhar Kolovecha said that, please understand, at least give me something so that I can use it to worship Ganges. I don't want any profit. He said, no, you're charging too much. He would take away everything. And this would happen every day. Not even a 1 day gap. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Nimai would eat every day his lunch on the leaves which he had got from Kolovecha Sridhar's shop. Not a shop, just a thela, what we call a small outlet. Not a shop. So that was the situation of Sridhar Kolovecha. He was so poor. One day Nimai Pandit said that, Sridhar, how stupid you are. See the people who are staying around you. They are worshipping Durga, they are worshipping, other demigods, and see the amount of wealth that they have, and see how poor you are. You have more of patches than the original cloth. His cloth had more patches than the original cloth. That's how, and he would just tie the two ends. When they would tear, he would just tie the two ends. I said, you have more patches than the original cloth. You don't have enough proper roof. When you are in the house, you're sitting with an umbrella when it rains. Does it make sense? To have a house where you have to sit with the umbrella in that if it rains. What's the use of that house? But I say, you're so poor. You don't have anything. Just see these people. They're having big houses, big mansions. Maybe if it was now, beautiful cars. And see how poor you are. I said, I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm very happy. Because he said that, in my opinion, it's a very profuse lesson for all of us. See, in my opinion, Sridhar Kolovich said, there's no difference between a rich man who has everything and a small bird who just has the few feathers to cover herself and few things to eat. Because as far as I am concerned, Krishna is providing everything to that person and Krishna providing it to the bird. I don't need anything. I have everything that I need to survive. The philosophy of this world is more is more, but the real philosophy is less is more. That is spiritual understanding. Material understanding is to have more means to have more. But spiritual understanding is to have less is to have more. Because the lesser you have, the more dependent you are on Krishna, and that is what makes you more of a wonderful devotee. So Sridhar Kolovich was following that beautiful example. And see what is the result of this. What is the result of this sort of life? He was living in utter poverty. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was having this Mahaprakash, Nimai was having this Mahaprakash where he was showing mercy to everybody, he called, please call Sridhar. And can you imagine, he was such an unknown devotee. So when all these great devotees, Advaita Acharya and all the Navadvip devotees were there, when they heard the name Sridhar, they said, Sridhar? Which Sridhar? We don't know who is Sridhar. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the banana seller, go to this direction and you will find him shouting in ecstasy, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go in the direction and get him here. And they're searching, Sridhar, where are you? We don't know who you are you there? And they found Sridhar in ecstasy chanting Hare Krishna. And they said, please come, Lord Chaitanya is calling you. And he said, Sridhar, when he came in front of Lord Chaitanya, he said, please tell me, what do you want? You utterly purchased me by your love. If you want, I can give you all the riches of Indra. Anything you want, the best of knowledge, any pleasures you want, all the mystic powers, all yours. Please tell me. What Sridhar said, because he was experiencing bhava, has explained these beautiful words. He was not attached to all these things. I said, my Lord, I don't want to do business with you. As Dhruv Maharaj said, as Prahlad Maharaj said, I am not come to do business with you. I don't want anything. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu insisted. You can imagine the Lord is insisting, please ask me something. You have to ask. You cannot not ask. That is the quality of a devotee. Just imagine the situation. 99% of the people, they are thronging the temples to ask something the Lord. Krishna, give me this, give me that. And here, the Lord is asking Sridhar, please ask. He said, I don't want anything. You understand the high level of devotion that this Chaitanya Charitamrita is explaining to us? Just hearing the story is nice. It's wonderful that you hear the story and you appreciate the story. Sridhar Kolovich ki jai. That's good. But what do we learn from this character of Sridhar Kolovich is important. It is not that you hear it and you say ki jai and you make progress. But you need to understand this character and you need to put it into your lives. You need to understand what is the scriptures teaching us. So the Lord is ready to give everything to Sridhar Kolovich and he doesn't want anything. And he insisted again and again. And Sridhar said, okay, you can give me one thing. And the Lord was happy. At last he's asking something. Please, tell me what you want. And Sridhar Kolovich said, life after life, in my heart, I want this pastime of you coming to my stall every day and arguing with me for 2.5 hours and ultimately taking all the bananas for free of cost. This pastime should be happening in my heart, lifetime of lifetime. That's all I want. I don't want anything else. And the Lord was amazed. He said, such is the devotion of devotees like Sridhar Kolovich. They do not want anything. And if you see, 2.5 hours was a traumatizing experience for Sridhar Kolovich from a material perspective. Somebody ragging you for 2 hours and taking everything you have without paying anything to you in return. It was a traumatizing, ragging experience. But that's what he wanted, a lifetime after lifetime. So we understand this wonderful verse. Each verse of Krishna Goswami is so very important to understand. That when we have a sea of bliss of service to Krishna, that drops of ocean in artha, kama, dharma and moksha is insignificant from the gopis of Vrindavan and Sridhar Kolavecha. And then he further explains in the next verse, he says, the conclusion of all revealed scriptures is that one should awaken his dormant love of God. The conclusion of all revealed scriptures. I mean, can you imagine? You're getting the sar, the conclusion, and you don't have to really read all the scriptures. And one thing is to go read all the scriptures and try to figure out what is the final understanding. But here you are getting it in one sentence. How many scriptures are there in the world? I mean, just our Vedic scriptures are so enormous. The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Ityasas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Bhagavad, just that itself. And most of us are not even read even once any of the scriptures completely. Want to talk of understanding the conclusion of that. If you want to understand the conclusion of something, you have to read that thing many, many times to understand the conclusion. You can't understand it one reading. And want to talk of all the scriptures of the creation. That means that includes Bible, the Quran, and all scriptures that ever exist. And here in one sentence, you're getting understanding. The conclusion of all scriptures is to develop the dormant love of God. And he explained, you are greatly fortunate to have already done so. Who is saying this? The Guru of Lord Chaitanya is telling Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is repeating this to Prakashananda Saraswati. This is the understanding of being fortunate. We have a very different understanding of fortunate. When you see somebody making big money, how fortunate. He is so fortunate. What good karma he has. Every year he is having a better car. Very fortunate. Oh, see how wonderful wife and children he has got. Or husband. How fortunate. What a business he has. No amount of external economic slowdown is affecting his business. How fortunate he is. See his beauty. If I had that beauty, how fortunate is that person? See how beautiful he looks. See his eloquence, see his knowledge. If I had that knowledge, see the way he recites the verses, see the way he understands the scriptures. How fortunate. That is our understanding of fortune. Bhagyavan. But what is the real fortunate person? The real fortune is when we develop or awaken our dormant love of God. So we must understand what is real fortune. When we please Krishna, when we please the spiritual master, that is real fortune. Many times, even in the devotee circle, we'll talk of outsiders, we become envious of people because they have something better than us. Because we really do not even have an understanding of what really fortune or success really means. The real success is when a person becomes unalloyed, sold out slave of his spiritual master. That's real success. And that is to be envied. And that is to be, but we become envious of external things. And we unnecessarily create envy amongst devotee environment because we don't even understand what is real fortune. So the Lord is teaching here what is real fortune. What is real being Bhagyavan, fortunate. What is real success? The real success is you are greatly fortunate because you already done so, that you have developed the love of God in your heart. And then he went on to say, it is a characteristic of love of God that by nature it induces transcendental symptoms in one's body and makes one more and more greedy to achieve the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. So a very, very wonderful understanding. That Krishna consciousness is not an outside-in process, but it's an inside-out process. We'll try to explain what it is. It is not that you can be Krishna conscious by externals, by just wearing a beautiful tilak, or by wearing a beautiful dhoti or a sari, or dancing in a particular way, or talking in a particular way, or having a particular hairstyle, or having a particular bodily color, that you are a devotee of the Lord. So it is explained that the characteristic of love of God, it's by nature it induces transcendental symptoms in the body. So when something is inside, that is what is shown outside. So it's an inside-out process. Many a times, we understand Krishna consciousness to be a very, very external process. And that's why we show these symptoms externally, in the way we talk. And when we come to Krishna consciousness, the way we talk changes, isn't it? Our way of talking changes. I think it's worth mentioning. Once, when I became a new devotee, and I was quite amazed to see the way people talk in devotee. It's not the way it happens outside. So one devotee said, "Prabhu, you are great." So usually when you're outside, I say, "Thank you." Somebody says, "You are great," thank you. Right? But in devotee, we naturally, say, "Prabhu, you are great." No, I'm not great. I'm most fallen. And that's the right way of replying, because we are fallen. I said, "I'm not great. You are great." So two devotees were talking, and one devotee said, "Prabhu, you are great." I said, "No, I'm not great. I'm like a worm in the stool." I said, "My God, I've never heard that sort of a reply. A worm in a stool." So, Sridama Gokulananda ki. So I said, that's very interesting. So I was learning the way to talk like devotees. So he said, "I'm like a worm in a stool." So other person said, he also wanted to reply to this reply. I said, "Prabhu, I'm like the worm in the stool of that worm." I said, "This is really far out." I was trying to figure out what does it mean to be the worm in the stool of that worm. I said, I didn't understand. But it was something that person spoke to mean that he is more fallen than that person. Right? So just by talking like this, you don't become a devotee. Just by saying that you are fallen, you don't become a devotee. Just by acting humble, Hari Bol Prabhu, Hare Krishna, how are you Prabhuji? It is not that you become kind just by looking kind or talking kind. It has to come from within. It has to be within, and what is within will be seen, because the fact is, whatever is there within will be seen. Many times, no offenses to anybody, but many times, people don't like to show their white hair. It's fine. We understand that, we want. So they dye the hair. And obviously it is artificial. It is something which you are covering it up. You are not showing the real thing. But what is real is always shown. After a few days, he doesn't know that, but few hairs start becoming seen, the white hair. And because he can't be dyeing every day. so the few hairs are seen. And and forget talking about white hair. Somebody has a wig. I know people, some of the very famous people that, I won't quote names here, you can ask me privately. Some of the very famous film stars in India, they have wigs. They are bald by name. But they have wigs. So many times people, they buy wigs that look as good as natural, but it's not natural. So sometimes it shows up. These things comes up, boom. And it shows that, man, it's a wig. It's not real hair. So what is there inside will be seen in due course. Be sure about that. You can hide it to the maximum extent, but ultimately it will be seen. I'm just a very gross example. Similarly, whatever is there in our heart, in due course it will be revealed to the world. No matter how much ever you try. So if you have dormant love of God in your heart and you are trying to cover it, the ecstasies, one day it will be shown the way Prabhupada. He tried to cover Sridama Gokulananda ki. The Prabhupada tried to cover his ecstasies. He was a Paramahansa Mahabhagavad devotee of the Lord. He was trying to cover his ecstasies, but few times when you sing Jai Radha Madhav, he became choked up. So these internal things were shown. But that is good. That's a natural devotee that he tries to cover his ecstasies and doesn't want to show that. But at the same time, the shallowness of our heart will be shown in spite of our acting in a particular way as a devotee. So what is explained here, the Krishna consciousness is the internal development of consciousness. It is not the International Society for Activity. It is consciousness based. It is not International Society for Krishna activities. It is International Society for Krishna consciousness. It is not activity based movement. It is a consciousness based movement, and consciousness is an internal thing. It is not an external thing. The internal consciousness will make you do a particular activity. So it's explained beautifully. I mean, it's very wonderful that all the symptoms of bodily symptoms, the love of God from inside will manifest in the form of what? Sometimes crying, sometimes laughing, sometimes chanting, sometimes running here and there like a madman. So when you have an internal love of God, it will manifest in the form of all these things. But people who are cheap imitators, they try to do this artificially. A very classical story in this regard. There was a very, very empowered devotee of Ananta Shesh, a devotee of the king of snakes, Ananta Shesh. He was an empowered devotee, very, very elevated devotee of the Lord. And he was a snake charmer by profession, naturally. So he was singing songs of Krishna dancing on the hoods of Kaliya. And he was dancing in the most amazing way, completely oblivious to the externals. So Haridas Thakur was passing by, and there was a huge, somebody is dancing on the street. Obviously, there's a crowd of people. In India, everybody is keen to know what's happening if there's something happened, everybody just surrounds. What happened? I don't know if it happens here. But everybody surrounds and says, what is happening? So this guy was dancing, and everybody was surrounding, and Haridas Thakur was wanting to know what's happening there. And he saw, and he was so happy to hear Krishna dancing on Kaliya. And he was just so happy to hear this beautiful pastime from this wonderful devotee of the Lord, Ananta Shesh, devotee of the Lord of the king of the snakes. And at one point, Haridas Thakur could not control his emotions. As we said, what is internal comes out sometimes. He started dancing himself. And when Haridas Thakur started dancing, this snake charmer went to the side and was observing with great awe and reverence the ecstatic dance of Haridas Thakur. He was jumping and dancing and crying and yelling and running here and there. It's exactly what is explained here. And the snake charmer and everybody was amazed to see the ecstatic symptoms in the body of Haridas Thakur. It was a wonderful display of devotion. And this person who had full understanding of what is devotion, snake charmer, he stood aside and was observing with complete reverence. And then one Brahmana was passing by, and he wanted to see what's happening. And he saw that there's a huge crowd of people surrounding Haridas Thakur, and they all are admiring him, appreciating him for his ecstatic dance. And he was extremely envious. He said, how can this cheap, mlecha get such respect from people just because he's dancing in a particular way? I will also dance. He got inspired by the dancing. Sometimes when we do Harinam, many people get inspired to dance. We were in Florence the other day, and all sorts of, we're dancing near the cathedral, and all sorts of crazy people externally, because dancing is such a wonderful thing. But dancing out of simplicity is one thing. And that's what people do, just come and dance, and they are happy and they don't realize, but they are getting such profuse benefits to be part of Lord Chaitanya's dancing, Sankirtan. But this Brahmana was not having that mood. He didn't come out of simplicity. He was envious, and he wanted to show that I'm also equally great as Haridas Thakur. He started to imitate Haridas Thakur, as is explained here. Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta says, if one who is not yet developed imitates symptoms artificially, he creates chaos in the spiritual life of the human society. So this person started to imitate. He started jumping and dancing exactly the same way as Haridas Thakur was doing. There was no difference externally. But you know what the snake charmer did for him? He took a big stick and started beating this person black and blue. Every portion, it is explained by Krishna Chaitanya Bhagavat. It is explained by Vrindavan Das Thakur, this particular pastime. He said he was beating every portion of his body very hard. And this Brahman had to run for his life because this man had beating him so hard. And this man ran for his life. I said, he must have realized he did a big blunder. And the people came running to the snake charmer and said, we didn't understand your behavior. When Haridas was dancing, you stood on the side and you were admiring his dancing. But when this Brahmana came to dance, why did you beat him black and blue? What is the reason? And then this snake charmer said that I understand what is real devotion and what is fake devotion. This person was simply imitating to have this ecstasies, and he will create such disturbance in the society. So I had to teach him a lesson. But this Haridas is such an elevated devotee of the Lord. Externally it looks the same. Please understand, it's a very wonderful lesson that we learn. Externally it looked the same. The dancing was the same. Everything was same. But it's the internal substance which was different. When you shoot a bullet which doesn't have the gunpowder, it makes the same sound. But it doesn't have any effect. Because there's no internal substance, just an empty bullet. Similarly, externally it looks the same. But internal substance is what makes. Purity is the force, Prabhupada said. What is the force? It is not the externals that is the force, but purity is the force. But when devotees, and this purport, Prabhupada writes so wonderfully, it talks about ecstatic symptoms. And it's nice to understand that Prabhupada, when he talks about ecstatic symptoms, he's talking about people imitating ecstatic symptoms. Because Prabhupada doesn't need to write. When somebody has ecstatic symptoms, he is not going to be showing off, because that's a natural quality of a devotee who has ecstatic symptoms. He's going to be humble enough to just cover this, and he tries very hard to cover the symptoms. But what Prabhupada writes in the purport is a danger of imitating these symptoms. The danger of duplicity. What is duplicity? When Bhakti Siddhanta was asked, he said, what is simplicity? When he was asked, what is simplicity? He said, no duplicity. That is simplicity. When devotees lose their simplicity, they start acting duplicitous. And duplicity is most prominent in the devotee environment, more than the outsiders. When does one become duplicitous? When somebody wants to cover something, right? When he knows that what he's doing is not right, and he's not able to do the right thing, he covers it up by duplicitous behavior. But the outsiders, they are quite shameless, and they don't need to really cover up what they are doing. They are fine. There's one person who came to the hospital, in our Bhaktivedanta hospital. He was our guest, not a devotee. And he was there for the 31st December night. So we all devotees were dancing in Chandi. We called him, but he didn't come. And then next day I met him, and he said, you know something, Mr. Dalal, Sridama Prabhu? I said, yesterday I had a fantastic experience. I said, what happened? I thought, he must have gone to, I told him to go to the Jew temple or some temple. I said, use this. I said, you talk about these 4 principles that you talked about. Yesterday I broke all of them. I said, my God. And he was so proud in saying that. And then I realized that, most of the people who are not devotees, many of them, I would say, not most, they are shameless. They don't really feel shameful to say that they did some horrible things. So they don't need to be duplicitous, because they are very shameless. They say what they are. But who needs to be duplicitous? The people who want to cover up what they are supposed to do and what they are doing. And who are those? Unfortunately, at least I can see in myself, many times we are very duplicitous. Because we know where to go. We know the highest understanding of Krishna consciousness. It's very clearly explained. This is what is to chant 16 rounds attentively, to be humble devotee, Trinadapi Sunichena Taroreva Saishna, Amanina Manadina Kirtanya Sadahari. Very clearly explained. All the signs of an advanced devotee. And that is here. And we find ourselves to be here. The reality is that we are far away from what we need to go. So there are two ways you can bridge this gap. Two ways. To work very hard and slowly and gradually reach that stage. It might not be overnight. We have to work hard to reach that stage. That is one way. The hard way, we have to spend a lot of time and energy. And it might take years. But the easy way out is to just appear or show to people that you are on this level. If you are not yet, they just show, I'm on this level. That means when you're chanting in the temple, Hare Krishna, very intense straight down, that's good. That you're having straight back and intense chanting. But is that the way you do when you are private and alone? I heard a very wonderful statement. Your Krishna consciousness is not the way you behave when you are with people. It's how you behave when you are alone. Or when you are with your family. And you see there's a huge ocean of difference. The way we behave when we are with people, the way we behave when we are alone. We don't have to really ask you all. We all know what we are when we are alone. At least I know. I don't know about, you must be all great devotees. But I know how demoniac we are when we are alone. And but when you are sitting here and you act like a great devotee, that's good. Because even Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj said, fake it till you make it. And that's one way. But sometimes you fake so much, there's so much of faking going on, that you start believing that you have made it. And that's another way, that sometimes you say a lie so often you're lying. Actually at one point you actually believe that you've done that. It's quite strange that the way the mind works. So here it is explained that it causes such a chaos in the spiritual life of the human society when people start imitating. What is imitation? Because somebody who is behaving in a particular way, he is getting the name fame, then I will start behaving in the same way, even though I am not having the realizations. I will have the duplicitous behavior, and maybe I will get the same name, fame, adoration, distinction. Duplicity, a very, very dangerous anartha in a life of a devotee. Better to be honestly what we are, and work hard and try to actually reach this situation. And this imitating, having this what we call a Pondraka-like facade. You know who is Pondrak? There was this imitation was not something which has happened recently. Even in the time of Krishna, this very interesting person, his name was Pondrak. He told the world, he told his subjects, he was friends with the king of Kashi. And he announced that, actually I have come to deliver the world. Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya cha duskritam dharma samsthampanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So he proclaimed that this Krishna of Dwarka is a cheap imitator. I am the original one. I am the original Vasudev. And believe me, he was such a fantastic actor. And a fantastic, costume he had hired. That he had these 4 hands. 4 hands with Shankha, Chakra and Gada and Padma. All the 4 insignias. He had the chariot, he had the Saranga bow. Then he had a chariot insignia of Garuda. Everything. And he said that Krishna, if you don't give up your being Krishna, I'm going to attack you. I'm going to expose you. So, this messenger came to Dwarka. And he announced the same thing. He sent a message that you give up your being Krishna, because our King Pondrak is the original Vasudev. And he read the whole message. And guess what did the people of Dwarka what was the reaction? Anybody? When they heard this, they had a hearty laugh. And it was written, there are long hearty laugh. And Krishna also couldn't stop laughing. And sometimes you hear a joke, you laugh. But you hear a real crazy joke, you can't stop laughing. Sometimes when you're alone, you think of the joke, you start laughing. And sometimes you're on the bus and you hear all that, you start laughing. It's such a joke it is, isn't it? This was such a joke for the Dwarka Vasis. This man, he's thinking he's Krishna. And Krishna also laughed. But he laughed and then became very angry. He said, tell your stupid king, he told this messenger, that I'm going to attack him. And the same thing that he's talking about being false in with me, the same disc is going to attack him and ask him to save himself. And this Pondrak, can you imagine the amount of pride that he didn't settle down with Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva. He wanted to be Krishna. He could be a little lower, but he said, no, the top. I want to be the top person. Vasudev, that's what I am. Really, quite a complete egocentric maniac. So he got his 2 Akshwani divisions of army, and his king of Kashi had 3. 5 Akshwani divisions, and Krishna came there. And and can you imagine, here Krishna just heard this guy, having 4 hands and everything. But then when he came to the battlefield, Krishna actually saw him. And again Krishna laughed. It's like this, Krishna was, he had the same dhoti. Sometimes we have, we see, devotees are expert in acting. And they act in a way which, like somebody. So it is written in Bhagavatam that this is very childish. When somebody acts, when he is not on the level, it is very childish. Because in a drama, children act and one of the child is make a king. So you are the king. And everybody is your subject. And the person acts like a king. And he gives orders. But actually what is the real fact? They are all children. They are all insignificant. No, children are not insignificant. But, they are very important people in society. But what can they do? They are not kings. But one of them is made a king. So to act what you are not is very childish. And that was Pondrak was doing. He was acting very childishly. And Krishna said, I am going to sever your head. And Pondrak started speaking, what can you do? You are a fake person. You will be exposed. Barking dogs seldom bite. Jo garaste rahe, wo baraste nahi. In Hindi, we have that the clouds which make sound, they don't really shower rain. They just make big sound. But the real clouds who have big rain, they don't make sound. There's a spore. So this guy was making such big sound, talking. He didn't have much substance. When you don't have much substance, you talk. Because you want to cover up your being idiot by talking, by appearing to be smart. But it said that a person's stupidity is exposed when he opens his mouth, isn't it? That's why people who are deeply realized, they don't speak too much. They have completely controlled. Vacho Vegam. Very nice. Very wonderful. Somebody who has wonderful qualities is like a tree who bends. And he doesn't, he's very humble. Similarly, one who has deep knowledge, he doesn't brag about his knowledge. He's very, very silent. He speaks when he's asked to speak. But people who don't have much substance, they are just rattling. So Pondrak was rattling so many things. Krishna didn't speak much. He just laughed. Again, it is said he had a long laugh. And then he took his chakra and severed his head off. It was just finished. To show to the world, Krishna was very angry and he severed his head off. It didn't really play with him like he did with the other demons. Krishna was so disgusted with this guy. He said he just needs to be destroyed right now, immediately. So this is the danger of imitation, and we need to be extremely careful. That's why Prabhupada is cautioning us that we need to try to develop the internal substance and then slowly be sure that this is what is in store for us. Symptoms that we talked about is in store for us, but let's not reach it prematurely. As one speaker said, let's not be premature Paramahansas. Sometimes we have this PP syndrome, it is called. Premature Paramahansas. And we prematurely think that we are on a higher level. But let us be realistic on whatever level we are. At the same time, trying to work hard to reach that level. Not shameless, this is what I am and this is what I'm going to be. No, that's not the mood. You accept what you are. You know what level you are. And then you try to reach the higher stage of Krishna. And that's what is being taught in these beautiful verses and the beautiful verses that that our acharyas have written on being realistic, being true to what we are, and behaving based on the realizations that we have, and learning from people who have higher realizations, and slowly reaching the higher understanding of Krishna consciousness. And one day, as explained, we will have the symptom of running like madmen. Not mad in the material sense, but spiritually mad. That it will be such uncontrollable emotions in our heart. As explained, Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj many years back, he came across this verse, and he was at the hospital, and he called all of us. I said he came across a very interesting thing. And in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada writes, one fine day you realize that you are perfected your life. One fine day. So one fine day we will wake up, and Krishna would have given this mercy to us, provided we have been true to the process. We have followed the process properly, systematically, humbly. Krishna will gift us this wonderful gift of love of God in our hearts. Thank you very, very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any corrections, any deletions, any comments, any of the devotees?